Welcome to Voices of the Dead, where these aren't just stories, these are real events. Story name, The Last Room. Daniel had been driving for nearly 12 hours. The empty highway stretched endlessly through the dense forest, and the only light came from his car's dim headlights. His phone had lost signal hours ago, and the silence of the road was almost unbearable. When he finally spotted the small roadside inn, it felt like salvation. The wooden building stood half hidden among tall pine trees. Its porch light flickered weakly, like it hadn't been replaced in years. Inside, the lobby smelled of damp wood and something faintly sour. Behind the counter sat an old man with gray, thinning hair. He looked up slowly, almost startled to see a guest at that hour. "Not many travelers this late," the man muttered. "I just need a room for the night," Daniel said, exhausted. The innkeeper hesitated for a moment, then pulled out a brass key. "Only one left. Room 6, end of the hall." Daniel noticed the man's hands trembled slightly as he placed the key on the counter, but he was too tired to ask questions. The hallway was narrow and dimly lit, lined with faded wallpaper that peeled at the corners. The carpet squished beneath Daniel's shoes as if it had absorbed years of spilled rainwater. When he reached room 6, the door gave a low creak as it opened. Inside, the room was simple: a single bed, covered with a quilt that smelled faintly of dust. A cracked mirror hung crookedly on the wall. A wooden chair stood by the window, its back facing the bed. The air was colder than the hallway, carrying a faint metallic scent, like rust or blood. Daniel shivered, but told himself it was just his imagination. He tossed his bag onto the floor, collapsed onto the bed, and closed his eyes. But sleep wouldn't come. The silence was too thick. Around 2 a.m., Daniel's eyes snapped open. Something felt wrong. Then he heard it, a faint, steady breathing, not his own. It came from the corner of the room near the chair. "Hello?" he whispered, his voice breaking the silence. The chair creaked, shifting slightly, as though someone had just leaned forward. The mirror caught his eye. Its reflection didn't match the room. The bed, the chair, they looked right, but in the corner of the glass stood something else, a shadow. Daniel grabbed his phone, lighting up the screen, but the room was empty. The chair sat still, untouched. His pulse slowed, and he let out a shaky laugh. "I'm just overtired." But when he looked back at the mirror, the shadow had taken form. A woman in a torn white dress, skin pale as bone, hollow black eyes staring back at him. He spun around. The corner was empty, but in the mirror, she was standing behind him. Daniel froze. His breath came in shallow gasps. The woman's lips moved silently in the reflection. He couldn't hear her words, but his ears rang as if the sound existed just beyond human range. Then, all at once, her whisper slid into his head. "Get out before he wakes." The mirror cracked with a sharp snap. Daniel stumbled backward, knocking his phone to the floor. The room plunged into darkness. He scrambled for the door, but it wouldn't open. The knob twisted uselessly in his hands. Behind him, the chair scraped across the floor, slowly, inch by inch. Something invisible was sitting down. The air turned icy. Daniel's breath fogged in the darkness. He pressed himself against the door, too afraid to turn around. Then, from the bed came the sound of springs groaning, as if someone had just lain down beside him. Daniel's stomach dropped. He forced himself to glance at the mattress. In the faint glow of moonlight through the window, he saw it, the quilt shifting, indentations forming, like the outline of a body pressing down. He couldn't move. His legs refused to obey. Then the whisper came again, louder this time. "Don't look at him." The next thing Daniel remembered was sunlight. His eyes opened to the morning light spilling through the window. The bed beside him was damp, the sheets twisted. Shaking, he rushed downstairs, determined never to come back. I need to check out," he stammered. The old man at the counter looked at him strangely. "You were in room 6? Daniel nodded. The man's face grew pale. "That room has been locked for years. You couldn't have stayed there." Daniel slammed the key on the counter, but when the old man picked it up, it wasn't brass anymore. It was black, burnt, warm to the touch. The innkeeper leaned closer, lowering his voice. 30 years ago, a couple stayed in room 6. Only the woman was found in the morning, lying on the bed, cold as ice. The man was gone. Some say he never left. His shadow sits in the chair. His breath fills the room. His weight presses down beside you. Daniel felt his stomach twist. His hands shook as he backed away. "You mean last night?" The innkeeper nodded gravely. "You weren't alone." Daniel fled the inn without another word, never looking back. He drove until the inn was only a memory in his rearview mirror. But that night, when he finally returned home, exhaustion pulling at him, he noticed something. On the passenger seat of his car lay a key, black, burnt, warm to the touch. And in the cracked mirror of his bedroom, the chair by his window wasn't empty anymore. If you survived this story, give it a like and subscribe to Voices of the Dead so you never miss the next haunting.